Hello, and welcome to today's lesson on how to generate ideas for essay writing. I'm Kezzy Moynihan, and I'll be taking you through the lesson today. Okay, so let's begin. How to generate ideas for essay writing. With a partner or by yourself, think, how do you normally come up with ideas for essay writing? Okay, so let's look at an example question. Some people think that zoos are cruel and all the zoos should be closed. However, others think that zoos are useful to protect rare animals. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. By yourself or with a partner, think about the question and think about how you might begin to write this. Okay, so let's look at one of the first ideas of how you can start to generate different ideas. So, one of the easiest ways to come up with different ideas and start getting your brain to think about the question is highlighting the key words in the question and then making a word tree. A word tree is when you just put a key word on a piece of paper and then brainstorm related language or language that you think of when you look at the key word. So let's look at the key words in this question. Zoos, cruel, useful to protect rare animals. Pause the recording here and by yourself or with a partner. Write down some language connected to these key words. What kind of language do you think of when you think of zoos or cruel or useful to protect rare animals? When you've finished, unpause the recording and we'll move to the next slide. Okay, so we're going to look at the next slide and an example word tree. So here you can see with zoo, different ideas that have come up are things like show, cage, wildlife, exhibition, visit, safari, zoology. With cruel, safety, evil, unfair, kind. So you'll notice that this person has also wrote down words that are more the opposite. So it's any language that triggers a connection to the key word. With rare animals, we have endangered, extinct, population, preserve, save, pandas. And for useful, we have things like education, helpful, a hindrance, necessary, experience. If you find it difficult to do this initially in English, you can do it in your native language at first, and then use a dictionary to help you find the more accurate translation of the word in English. Okay, let's look at the next idea. For this one, you are going to brainstorm different but relevant perspectives. By perspectives, we mean the context, the context that someone is in that gives them their unique opinion or view on a situation. Different perspectives might be a political perspective, a financial perspective, the older generation perspective, younger generation. religious perspective, scientific perspective. So let's look at some example perspectives that this student thought were relevant to this question. Zoo workers, the public, conservationists, or people whose job it is to protect animals and help their populations grow. Education perspective, animal activists, or zoologists and scientists. Notice this student didn't choose perspectives like religious or political, younger or older, as they were probably not that relevant to the question. These 6 perspectives make sense for the question and are likely to trigger some interesting ideas. Next, excuse me. Next, you're going to brainstorm possible opinions that they might have. So looking back at the previous perspectives, what different opinions might those people have? What might a zoo worker think? For example, they might say, my animals are well looked after and seem happy. So it's likely a zoo worker would be very pro zoos and would think that they are useful and help protect rare animals. Next, we have an animal activist. What might they think? Discuss with a partner and then unpause the recording when you're finished. Okay. Animal activists may think animals need to live in their natural habitat. They are not entertainment. So it's likely that an animal activist in this context would be against zoos, and this may be one of their reasons. Thirdly, we have the public. Again, think, or with a partner, discuss. What do you think the public might feel about zoos? Let's have a look. I wouldn't get to see these animals. So in many contexts, other people will not get to see endangered or rare species of animals unless they are in a zoo. So it's often the case that the public are actually very glad and grateful for the existence of zoos. Now we have a conservationist. What do you think they may think? Okay, let's see. Zoos keep endangered species safe from habitat destruction and poachers. Poachers are people who kill animals for their fur or their horns. They use them as materials. So this person's perspective might make them more pro zoos and think they are useful. Zoologist, scientist. What do you think they may think? So we've got zoos can help us learn more about animal behavior and how to grow population numbers. We know that zoos are often used for science and research on wildlife, so it's very likely that a zoologist would be pro zoos. Finally, we have the educator perspective. Teachers, for example, what might they think about zoos? Okay, let's have a look. Zoos help teach children about animals and nature. So again, it's very likely that from this perspective, an educator would think that zoos are a useful tool to educate people about wildlife and endangered species. Did your perspectives and different opinions match the ones from here? If you had something different, discuss. Do you think your ideas would also work in this essay? Okay, let's look at the third and final idea. Think about what your opinion is and try to find contradictions. So if you think zoos are good because they help educate people, what might a contradiction to that specific idea be? With a partner or by yourself, discuss, what do you think about zoos? Are they useful or cruel? Okay, let's have a look. Here's the question again. And so we have a table. In this case, the student's opinion is that zoos are useful because. Now we're going to look at a list of ideas of why they think that and what the contradiction to that idea might be. So they keep animals safe. This is a common argument in favor of zoos. How might someone disagree with that specific argument? Discuss with a partner or think by yourself. Okay, let's see. They should be kept safe in the wild. It seems a logical idea that if you were to say that zoos keep animals safe, someone who disagrees with you might contradict that by saying that animals can be kept safe in the wild and that it's not fair to cage them up in order to protect them. Next, people can learn about nature. As we saw from the educator's perspective, zoos are often seen as a useful educational tool, and they help people learn about wildlife and the environment. What do you think a common disagreement or contradiction to that idea might be? Let's have a look. Animals are not an education tool. So an animal activist might respond that yes, people can learn about nature in zoos. However, the purpose of an animal's life is not to educate us humans. They have their own rights and right to freedom. And keeping them as something to help us learn is not a fair or justifiable argument. Lastly, they can help wildlife research. As we noted, zoos are often places that research on the environment can be done, and nature and wildlife as a whole. Zoologists often work there to study animal behavior. What do you think a common contradiction to that might be? We can learn about them better in the wild. It seems logical to say that yes, zoos can help us learn about animals. However, we can also learn about them in their natural habitat, possibly even better. Now, remember, the arguments on the contradiction side are not necessarily arguments that you agree with, but they are possible contradictions to the ideas that you have generated. With a partner, discuss which of these arguments do you think you could comfortably expand on? Which could you give more detail and possibly an example for? Okay. Thank you very much for today's lesson. I hope it was useful. My name's Kezi Moynihan, and I hope that this lesson has helped you think of different ways to generate ideas to write essays. Good luck.